In the near future, after humans expanded beyond Earth and formed the League of Free Worlds, they settled on many planets, including XT-59. The planet was covered with vast swamps that were nearly impossible to cross. Despite this, a large city was built there under a strict system that controlled every part of life. People were kept separated from the outside world. Their activities were constantly monitored, and important decisions were made for them, including their jobs and marriages. Christie was unhappy with both the work assigned to her and the husband chosen for her. When she tried to leave, the authorities quickly captured her. Christie and 8 other detainees were transported to a special prison facility. They were lined up against a wall while a scanning process collected their personal information. The gathered data was sent to central computers, where the president reviewed it and determined each prisoner's punishment. After the scans were completed, guards brought in another prisoner whose face was hidden beneath a bag. The captain informed the group that the law prevented their execution. Instead, they would be abandoned in the swamps. They were told that if they could survive a journey of 300 kilometers to the east, they might reach a place known as Happy Island, where they could earn forgiveness. Christie knew of the island but had never heard of anyone successfully reaching it because of the many dangers hidden in the swamps. Soon afterward, the prisoners were taken outside, and the hooded man was instructed to continue walking ahead. The hooded prisoner became suspicious and kicked a stone toward the fence. The stone revealed that the barrier was still carrying electricity. Believing the guards were trying to kill him and make it look like an accident, he reacted with alarm. The captain then formally announced the prisoner's exile and removed the bag from the man's head, allowing Irvin Khan to see clearly again. Before departing, the guards left behind a box filled with supplies. The captain warned the prisoners to leave the area within an hour, explaining that anyone who remained near the facility would be shot. After giving the warning, he switched the fence back on and left with the other guards. As soon as they were alone, a woman panicked and rushed toward the fence, but Christie stopped her. Irvin then suggested that everyone introduce themselves. Their introductions were interrupted when a frightening creature suddenly rose from the ground. It briefly swung its branch-like body before disappearing beneath the surface again. Irvin identified it as a swore, a predator that detected vibrations to locate its targets. Later, Irvin opened the supply box, causing the prisoners to compete for the available equipment. He selected only a knife and advised Christie to put back an item she had taken because she would not need it. At that moment, Joost Van, one of the prisoners, shut the box and declared that survival was impossible without his guidance, urging everyone to follow him instead. Irvin and Christie rejected the idea because they still intended to search for Happy Island, a destination Joost considered a myth. Before separating, Irvin requested a portion of the supplies for himself and Christie, but Joost refused. To force the issue, Irvin seized Kami and threatened him. Since violence among prisoners would bring punishment from the guards, Joost had little choice but to hand over food and tools. Irvin then surprised everyone by asking for the empty supply box and offering all of his food in exchange. Joost accepted the deal. His followers packed their belongings into backpacks and left. Christie wanted the woman she had saved earlier to travel with them, but Irvin objected. He believed she was too unstable and would only slow them down. Expecting that she would not survive, he preferred that she remain with Joost's group. He also explained that 2 people made the most effective survival team, making Christie realize he had planned his approach well in advance. As they traveled, Irvin had Christie walk in front because her lighter weight made it easier to detect dangerous swamp areas before someone became trapped. He pulled the box behind him using a rope tied around his body. After a while, a woman caught up with them and asked to join their team, even offering to share her supplies. Irvin was considering the proposal when gunfire suddenly erupted nearby. He and Christie quickly ran behind some rocks for cover, and after a short time, the shooting stopped. Since she was unharmed, Irvin concluded that the shots had been intended for him. Believing her arrival had drawn attention to their location, he told her to leave. Angry at being blamed, she returned to the larger group. Afterward, Christie and Irvin continued moving through the swamps. They stayed low to the ground and used the supply box as protection while traveling. During the journey, Christie noticed unusual creatures crawling on the box. Irvin explained that they were harmless and posed no threat. Once they crossed a magnetic field, Irvin stood up because firearms could no longer function in that area. He then hid behind some rocks and watched the other prisoners from a distance. He noticed that one member of the group was missing. Moments later, a flash from the prison facility showed that its cannon had fired. Irvin concluded that someone had remained behind and had been executed. As they traveled, Christie questioned whether the Happiness Islands were real. Irvin argued that the captain's attempt to kill him with the electrified fence suggested they existed. In his view, there would be no reason to secretly eliminate prisoners if survival were truly impossible. Even so, Christie found it strange that Irvin spoke confidently about the swamps despite never having visited them before. Back at the prison facility, the captain spoke with the president, who was frustrated that Irvin had survived. During their discussion, it became clear that the missing prisoner, Matthias, had actually been an undercover guard. The cannon blast had been staged and had not killed him. Later, Christie and Irvin stopped to rest and gather water. While they were doing so, a creature hidden underground attacked. An electrified tentacle burst from the swamp and nearly struck Christie. Irvin quickly threw himself at it, using his weight to block the attack. The creature responded by wrapping the tentacle around him and slicing open his chest. Following Irvin's instructions, Christie grabbed the knife and cut through the base of the tentacle. The injured creature immediately withdrew and disappeared back beneath the swamp. Irvin kept the severed tentacle, planning to use it as a weapon. While Christie treated the wound on his chest, she explained why she had been in prison. She had tried to obtain permission for a divorce, but the government official handling her request attempted to take advantage of her. She fought back to protect herself, and the incident resulted in his death. Their conversation ended when Yost and his followers arrived. Yost attempted to take the supply box, but Irvin drove him back by using the tentacle like a whip. The group eventually withdrew, allowing Irvin and Christie to continue alone. Several hours later, Irvin realized that Yost's group was still tracking them. Christie questioned why they were following if they did not believe the Happiness Island existed. Irvin suspected they were heading toward Rotten Shaw, an abandoned prison settlement inhabited by people rejected by society. Not long afterward, Irvin spotted the creature emerging from beneath the ground. He instructed Christie to lie still and remain silent. While they stayed motionless, the other group continued walking. Their movement attracted the creature, which began extending its branches from the ground. Yost eventually told everyone to stop, but the warning came too late. The massive creature erupted from the swamp and launched an attack. Most of the prisoners escaped the first strike, but 2 of them were caught by the creature's branches. One managed to free himself by cutting through a branch with a knife. The creature quickly regenerated the damage and formed an even larger structure in front of the group. Yost urged everyone to remain still, but Kami panicked and ran. One of the branches wrapped around his leg and held him in place. The creature's main body then descended, seized him, and dragged him into its underground nest. Soon afterward, the remaining branches vanished beneath the ground. Christie criticized Irvin for keeping silent about the danger. He replied that his only concern was staying alive and insisted they continue moving. Back at the facility, the president ordered the officers to capture Irvin and bring him in alive, referring to him as the advisor. He warned that failure would result in the officers being treated as prisoners themselves. Later, while Irvin and Christie were resting, Christie heard an unusual noise. She turned and saw a huge swarm of small creatures rushing toward them. She tried to flee, but Irvin stopped her. When one of the creatures came close, he struck it with the tentacle whip and then pulled Christie into the supply box. Moments later, the swarm surrounded them and began pounding on the box, causing it to shake violently. The box was strong enough to withstand the attack, and both of them survived inside until the creatures eventually moved away. Once it was safe, Christie and Irvin left the box behind and continued on foot. They entered deeper swamp terrain, using sticks to test the ground ahead before stepping so they would not sink. At the same time, Yost's group arrived in the same region, but Yost called for a break. One of the women objected and warned that they would lose Irvin's trail. Yost ignored the warning, which made her angry enough to cut her rope and try to leave. Yost chased after her but was careless and fell into a swamp pit. She mocked him as he struggled and called for help. One of the others considered rescuing him. She argued that Irvin, as a presidential advisor, had key knowledge about the area and that following him was more important than saving Yost. Most of the group agreed and left, while only one person stayed behind to pull Yost out. That night, Irvin caught insects and ate them raw, telling Christie to do the same if she wanted to survive. Although she found it unpleasant, she followed his example. He also explained that cooking them would only make the taste worse. Irvin then revealed the truth about his past. He had been a presidential advisor and was arrested while attempting to expose classified information that revealed corruption within the system. He explained that he had turned himself in intentionally, expecting exile, and believed that removing himself would weaken the system since it depended on his knowledge. Back at the facility, the captain discovered that the system was failing and that the communications satellites were no longer working. However, the system could not be restored because only Irvin had the access code needed to fix it. Later, the remaining group saw 2 figures in the distance and approached them, thinking they were Irvin and Christie. The people turned out to be former prisoners who had survived in the swamp for years by becoming cannibals. They attacked immediately, capturing Marilla while the rest of the group fled. Christie heard Marilla screaming and wanted to go back to help, but Irvin stopped her, saying it was too dangerous. The screams stopped after Marilla was killed. Christie was shaken and questioned who could have created such a harsh punishment system. Irvin admitted that he was responsible for designing it. Christie insulted Irvin and called him a monster. Irvin responded that no one had opposed the law when it was introduced, arguing that society shared responsibility for what it had become. Christie continued to criticize him, saying he had only realized his wrongdoing too late. Overwhelmed by guilt, Irvin ran off and screamed in an attempt to attract a swamp creature so it would kill him. Nothing appeared, and he concluded that even the monsters would not accept him. After that, he chose to continue guiding Christie. Still upset, Christie said the captain had offered her freedom in exchange for killing Irvin, but she had refused. Elsewhere, Yost grabbed one of the prisoners by the neck. She admitted that she had also been offered freedom by the captain if she killed Irvin. To verify her story, they scanned her and found a tracking device attached to her ankle. Yost decided they should remove it, but she panicked, tried to flee, and fell. She noticed too late that a spider-like web had wrapped around her leg. More threads emerged from the ground and fully trapped her until she could no longer move or breathe. After that, Yost took control of the remaining group, and they moved on. The tracking signal reached the captain, who was pleased to learn that the woman was dead. He then revealed that he still had an old weapon capable of working in swamp conditions and sent Matthias out with it. In Yost's group, they discovered a bag on the ground, and one of the men opened it. A black substance emerged, entered his body, and killed him instantly, consuming his face. Shortly afterward, one of the men approached Christie and Irvin and claimed he had left his group. Irvin did not trust him, and that suspicion proved correct when something struck Irvin's head and knocked him unconscious. When he woke up, he and Christie had been captured by the remaining prisoners. Yost explained that they were near an entrance to Rotten Shaw and needed a plan to move forward safely. Irvin suggested that Christie leave without him, but she refused and kissed him. Yost then carried Irvin on his shoulders as they moved forward, hoping to negotiate with the guards. Inside Rotten Shaw, Matthias and 2 officers arrived and subdued several hidden prisoners, interrogating another who claimed no new outsiders had appeared. Suddenly, a crossbow bolt was fired from the darkness, killing one officer. Matthias and the remaining guard responded by killing multiple prisoners and destroying part of the area. Outside, one of the prisoners wandered alone when a creature began to surround him. When an officer went to investigate, the creature attacked and dragged him away. During the struggle, the officer's weapon discharged accidentally, hitting the prisoner in the shoulder. The weapon dropped as the creature disappeared with its victim. Meanwhile, Yost and Irvin entered Rotten Shaw through a hidden tunnel. Yost left Irvin hidden and went to speak with Matthias in another room, offering a deal. Matthias agreed and gave him his weapon as a sign of trust. When Yost later brought him back, Irvin was gone. Matthias used his scanner to track Irvin's location, but did not share the results. Yost moved ahead to search, while Matthias prepared to ambush him. Yost noticed the movement and fired first, but his weapon had no bullet. Matthias immediately shot him twice, bringing him down. After that, Matthias checked behind a curtain, expecting to find Irvin, but the scanner had actually detected Jan and Christie instead. Matthias killed Jan and captured Christie, using her as leverage to force Irvin to appear. At that moment, one of the remaining prisoners entered the area carrying a weapon taken from one of the guards. He found Irvin, and the two quickly formed a plan. They stepped out from hiding, and Irvin agreed to surrender himself in exchange for Christie's release. Matthias accepted and let Christie go. Then Yost reappeared and stabbed Matthias in the head from behind. As he died, Matthias accidentally fired his weapon and hit Christie, but the shot turned out to be a sedative rather than a lethal round. Afterward, Irvin thanked Yost, who was badly injured. Yost then asked for Matthias's poison capsule, and Irvin handed it over so he could die without suffering. Sometime later, Christie, Irvin, and the remaining prisoner reached the coastline and discovered small islands scattered across the sea. The prisoner assumed their journey had ended, but Irvin realized the islands were actually floating formations of swamp material that could still support weight. The group chose one and used sticks to push it away from the land, hoping to drift towards safety. Back at the facility, the president scolded the captain for the mission's failure as the system began to break down. The captain ordered another officer to pursue Irvin, still hoping to capture him. Meanwhile, the remaining prisoner's wound continued to bleed heavily, and he realized he would not survive much longer. Instead of waiting, he jumped into the sea and said his final goodbye before a swamp creature pulled him underwater. Hours later, an officer arrived by aircraft and found Christie and Irvin, but the system failed again due to the missing code. The aircraft lost control and crashed into the ocean, sinking quickly. Christie and Irvin understood that Irvin's plan had succeeded and that the government system was collapsing. They briefly celebrated, but their relief ended when they saw a waterfall ahead. Using Irvin's knowledge, they shaped the floating island into a protective form and held on as they were carried through the violent water. Later, the waves pushed them onto a new empty coastline. Irvin believed a hidden military facility was nearby, but he did not know the final digit of its access code because only the president had chosen it. With only 2 possible attempts allowed, he began calculating options in the sand. Christie suggested a different idea. She told him to think about the last thing the president had said before entering the code. Following her advice, Irvin tested the system with a wrong entry first to confirm it was active. He then used the number the president had mentioned last, which successfully opened a passage in the mountain. Inside, they found an aircraft prepared for departure. Irvin said there was only 1 seat and told Christie she should leave alone. She refused, saying she wanted to stay with him, and they shared a kiss. They then left together in the same seat. They arrived on another planet where the League of Free Worlds learned about the crimes committed under the XT-59 system through their account. Peacekeeping forces were sent to liberate the planet, and after 10 years, a new system was established. But it ultimately became even more oppressive than the one before it.